We're back with another Faction War video here. This time we're talking about Sacred Order. Now, this might seem like one of the easier ones to take down, but if you don't have the right champions, it can be a little bit tricky. So, follow here. We're going to go over it. I'll show you exactly how to take it down. Welcome, I'm the Deadwoodjedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video. We're doing the Faction War series again. We're talking about Sacred Order. A couple quick caveats before we jump right into it. One, I'm not using the meta champions. No legendaries are going to be used. I want to try to use the champions that you guys might have access to, right? So if you have better champions than this, which you almost certainly will, use them. It's definitely a way to go, but we're going to talk about that. We'll break down all the different type of champions that we're going to be looking for, how to take down stage 21, specific champions that we want to look at for that boss in particular and the waves there. And then we're also going to talk about all the different bosses, you know, how difficult they are and stuff. I'll show you my stage 21 run as we go over the gear and wrap it up right there. Sacred Order is probably not as difficult as many of the other ones, but you don't want to sleep on it. And if you're struggling with it, this should help. Hey, just a friendly reminder, if you haven't already, take a moment and hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell so you don't miss the next one of these videos that comes out. And of course, if you guys need help with your account, you can go to my website, deadwoodjedi.com, where I'll be happy to look at your squad and make whatever improvements are needed to be made. But, you know, when I'm doing that, I still want to play my own account. That's why I use BlueStacks, which you'll find linked down below in the pinned comment and description of this video. BlueStacks is a great way to run multiple instances of the game on your computer at the same time. And if you enjoyed today's music, we have that SoundStripe link down below in the pinned comment and description of this video as well. Use code Deadwoodjedi, save 15%. Okay, so this is obviously the Broadmaw wave, and then the next one will be the Maneater wave. I do generally try to target them first, but I have Fenax here. You can block revive, so might not be much of an issue. But obviously getting through the waves can be a bit of a challenge. You know, bringing out those sets and whatever, help you through it is definitely advisable. All right, let's start by looking at the bosses that are in this faction. So first off, stage 7, you have the Disruptor. This one provokes on the A1 2 people, and then True Fear as an AoE, and then chance to freeze when hit. This one's actually really easy. Obviously with stage 7, all you need to do is have champions that are like level 50 and up, and you should be able to take this down without any issues. Obviously there's a lot of debuffs, right? So bringing block debuffs, bringing cleanse, definitely going to be helpful, but none of these debuffs stop you from attacking. Provoke still lets you attack. True Fear, 50-50 shot of whether you can attack, right? The freeze is annoying. That's the one that you want to avoid. So again, cleansing and block debuffs. Resistance is definitely a good way to go as well. I don't like putting resistance on all my champions though, so maybe just that cleanser or block debuff champion, and you should be in good shape. This is a faction that should be able to handle that pretty easily, as there's more than a few cleansers or debuff turn reduction champions, you know, that kind of thing. So getting through this shouldn't be too difficult. Stage 14 is the Mirrorer. The Mirrorer, I think that's how it's said. This one's actually a little bit, it can be a little bit tricky, right? Now, obviously, it's only stage 14, so it's not nearly as difficult as when you face this on a stage 21. But basically, the big thing is he does a health swap with one of your champions, and that can be really problematic if you don't prepare for it. The A1 is an AoE that has a small chance to place fear. That increases the more buffs that are on this champion. The A2 does a buff steal, so it's going to steal your buffs and give you his debuffs, like this like buff swap kind of buff debuff swap thing. It also has a debuff spread, so it goes on all your guys. So timing out your skills is going to be very helpful, right? Make sure you're not putting up your block debuff ability right before this A2 goes off. That's going to be important. Now, the other skill that is obviously the problematic one a lot of times is Meddle with Fate, this A3 ability where it exchanges the HP with one of your champions. So there's a trick here, right? It only happens once he's pretty darn low. So it's like, I think it's like 25% or 20% HP left. That's when it's going to trigger the skill. It won't do it beforehand. And obviously you want to make sure, you know, you don't want to be too low in health, but you're going to need to, you know, you're going to want to definitely make sure you heal up after that health swap. So there's two different approaches to this. One is make sure you can heal afterwards, right? And so you get him low, swaps health, you heal up to survive his next hit, and then you beat him down before that skill comes off cooldown. Or the other approach, which is probably the best approach, is just beat his HP down so fast that he never has a chance to use the skill. And some of that comes down to timing, making sure he's under half health or like a third health, but not too low to use the skill, just low enough where your next turn, you're going to be able to beat him down without any issue. So timing your debuffs, timing your buffs, and timing even the damage that you do can be really, really helpful and useful as far as attacking this boss. But of course, we want to talk about stage 21. That's where things always get difficult for us. And that's going to be the Protector on stage 21 here. Now, this one, AoE attack with a 40% chance of placing fear. It's definitely annoying, but it's not, going to be too problematic. The A2 revives all dead allies with full HP and places sleep up on this champion. And then the A3 is attacks one enemy with like basically an ally attack ability, and then places block damage on him for one turn if his allies are dead instead. And so what is this? How does this guy work? How does he work? What's the issue here? So one, that Legion Lord ability with the ally attack can be really, really strong. Obviously having the boss and 2 allies attack you can be problematic. One thing I would recommend looking at is getting some CC for the enemies, for those allies, right? So stun, freeze, those would be really good ones. Even sleep can work really nicely. The second thing is he's going to revive his allies. So unless you can block revive, which is pretty rare to do, though possible in this faction, unless you can do that, what I would really recommend is just ignore the allies, ignore them completely, with maybe using some CC so they don't kill you. But otherwise, don't worry about them. Just try to beat down the boss as quickly as you can. It's really kind of the best approach with this one. Otherwise, you're just playing with him, right? You're hitting him, his allies are killing you, you kill his allies, then he revives them, the boss isn't damaged, right? So like it becomes this thing where you're playing this attrition game, but unfortunately their boss is not taking any damage along the way. So ignore the minions, focus on the boss. That's the best approach here. Okay, we're to the boss. Everybody actually has full health right now, which is pretty good, I have to say. Not expected, so very nice to have. Now the question is, how are we going to best go about doing this? I don't want to use my heal just yet, so we're just going to A1 to start off. Heat up. We're going to try and... I think what we're going to do is try and get those 2 debuffs on. Perfect. Let's try and get decreased attack if we can. Also perfect. All right, so far so good. Go ahead and get some shielding out for us. That should help us when the boss goes here in just a moment. Excellent. Definitely took some damage, so it's not all roses. There you go. Finax is going to do some good stuff right there. Carolina is going to remove some of that, which is excellent. If we can't get more damage, some healing. It's always a little bit tricky here, but you can see I'm not bothering with the minions. It's not that I can't bother with the minions. I absolutely could, but they're just going to get revived. So it's kind of a waste of my time if I can avoid it. Sometimes you gotta, sometimes you have to do some things in order to survive. So it's not like total waste, mind you, but I want to make sure that the champions that I do have active don't die as well. That's going to be really important. Getting this decreased attack out, that was really, really nice. Obviously, I'm worried about that Zargala over there. If you take somebody down, it can be really bad news. So I want to avoid that as much as possible. Could probably try to find some ways to get some more. That's good. Get that decreased speed up again. Find some ways to get Aethar a little bit more healing, I think would probably be a good thing to do. As you can see, he's definitely taking some hits. So finding some ways to help with that wouldn't be a bad idea. But I don't have that right now. So we're very close to beating this boss. It's just about, can we survive these next hits? Oh, I think we got a refresh there. That was pretty clutch. That shield does a lot to help mitigate some of the damage we take. Can we do it? Can we do it? We're so close. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Decrease attack. Get some more healing out. Beat us up. Fenax, finish it off. Boom. And done. Done. Now, I did use Fenax. definitely going to be conceivable that I could block the revive of the little minions. That is an approach I could have tried to take. I think that should work. But obviously not everybody has Fenax. So I didn't even utilize that. It shows that this is doable regardless. So keep that in mind. As you can see, though, we were able to do it. Now, it's obviously difficult, right? The interesting thing about Sacred Order, they have a lot of epic champions and a lot of very good epics. I did not use many of the best ones. No Godseeker, no Deacon Armstrong even, right? Fenax is probably the one exception out of that. But I've never seen anybody use Carolina. Romero's pretty, not kind of a C-tier champion, right? Aethar is definitely been used, but nothing crazy going on with him. Frostbringer obviously is a C-tier champion as well. So a lot of underutilized champions I'm able to use. So it shows kind of what you need, right? This is pretty bare bones, and I did have to manual it. But, you definitely need some healing on your team, some protection. And while this may not be the best faction for that, there are a fair amount of champions that do at least a little bit of that kind of heal approach for you. Obviously, if I could bring in somebody like a Deacon who does AoE decreased defense, that would make going through the waves a lot faster and a lot easier. I think Fenax is probably an amazing choice, especially if you can get them to block the revive of the minions. I think that's actually a really good option for you. So that might be one way I would recommend going. But it is also hard to keep those kind of champions alive, right? Attack-based champions, they're pretty squishy. Aethar went down, or was almost going down. Fenax almost went down, and this definitely wasn't my first run at this, right? So if you can bring a reviver, that's also another really good approach to this. So there's definitely some viable alternatives as far as the champion makeup that you have here. But it comes down to basically the same thing as with all these factions, right? You need a little bit of protection and healing just to make sure your guys can stay alive. A lot of good RNG and skill usage, and then some, pretty big damage. Obviously, CC is good for the waves. I did have some stun sets that are kind of helpful. But in general, it doesn't take a ton to get through this stuff. You just want to try to find, the best combination of champions, and that's usually a balance. Generally, the way I approach it is I have one or two good damage dealing champions. If I only have one, I'm making sure I have a good setup champion for them. And then everybody else is there to keep them alive and protect them. And that gets me through it. Not the sexiest approach, but it works. Taking a look at the champions, you can see I have Aethar here. I didn't even finish rolling up his chest, so not everybody's going to be fully decked out here. I do have him basically with some perception, a couple different sets. The idea is I want 100% crit rate, fair amount of crit damage, and accuracy to make sure he can land his debuffs. That's pretty much it. He would not. I think he would actually benefit from putting him in a specific set, like stun or something to kind of help mitigate the enemies. The CC waves definitely would be good. He has good multipliers. He does good damage. So even without a ton of attack or crit damage, he can hit pretty decently hard. And mastery is obviously offense and support to kind of get some more turn meter, extend the duration of the debuffs, and do more damage. Fenax, I did put in a stun set. He does have that AoE ability with the block buffs. Nice and helpful for the waves. And probably not necessary as he only has the one AoE. Everything else is single target. But it definitely works pretty nice. And because of the unique way his A1 works, I think he actually has a double chance of being able to play stun off that A1. But I can't confirm that for you. So, just my speculation on that. Anyway, he deals really good damage, so I wanted to make sure I built that up as much as possible. Masteries, I went offense and defense tree. Honestly, you can go a bunch of different ways with that. I went with Helm Smasher, but I think going War Master would be just fine with him. For Romero, we went ahead and I had him already kind of half built with some trash gear that I had from a long time ago. So I have him in a frost set, basically. And my only goal here is for him to be as fast as possible to heal everybody and as tanky as possible so he doesn't die. If I can make those two things happen, that's great. I do have some resistance on him. This way he can avoid being feared and can continuously put out the buffs that he has. Mastery wise, he's completely unfinished, as I started him a long time ago and never got around to finishing him. Frostbringer here obviously is very similar to what I did with Romero. I want her fast and I want her tanky. Probably not tanky enough, honestly, in this build, or fast enough in this build, because I ended up giving her 100% crit rate, which in hindsight was a mistake. I think she could be somebody that would benefit decently from putting into a a stun set or a sleep set, something like that to help CC the enemy. Not really necessary. One thing I might look at is those curse sets with the hex debuff. That might be a nice little additional debuff to have with her on somebody's kit, and I think hers would suit nicely, especially with all of her, random attacks, basically. But yeah, I have her, a little bit of accuracy to land the debuffs that she does have, and obviously speed sets as well. And then, yeah, mastery-wise, we're kind of trying to encourage those two things: more speed and more accuracy and duration on those debuffs, and obviously Giant Slayer to help land a little bit of damage. I probably would, yeah, if in hindsight, though, I would take away the crit rate and, promote more sustainability with her. And then very last, we have Carlina. I do have her in a stun set as well. Again, I kind of would prefer having that on, I think, Frostbringer instead. But Carlina does have a nice AoE skill, and so this, works decently well. Her A3 is really nice, being able to put up a mini strengthen, but more importantly, decrease the duration of debuffs. Honestly, she's a pretty trash champion. There's lots of better options, but I just kind of wanted to use her because I never have, and I wanted to show that you can do this even with trash champions on your account. I would honestly probably even prefer Draconis over her, but all the same, she served her purpose for us. But pretty solid defense, HP, survivability and speed, again, is what we're looking for here. And I didn't give her any masteries. Why? Maybe I forgot. Maybe I just didn't want to. So Sacred Order, how do we do this? Well, obviously, if you have one of the legendaries, you're in really good shape. There are some of the best legendaries in this game are in this faction. I mean, Martyr, Venus, Cardiel, Cupidus, Holzring, Astralon. There's just a ton of really good champions, and I only named like half of them. So if you have one of the legendaries, absolutely you're going to want to use them, right? But the good thing about this faction is look at all those epics, right? We've got, I think, 24 epics available for you, which has to be, if not the most in any faction, right up there. And we've got quite a few useful ones, right? Whether we're talking about top tier epics like Deacon Armstrong, Godseeker Aniri, or even, Cardinal, Mordecai, right? We've got a lot of mid-tier ones as well. Champions like Lodric, Anchorite, even Inquisitor Shamail, Fenax, Aethar, Sanguina, Hope. There are quite a few champions that are, that are, I would say, mid-tier champions that can be good. And the thing is that it's not so much that these epics are super good. It's more that there's so many that you do have some options when trying to figure out what kind of a team you want to build here. And they don't offer great stuff, right? There's not a lot of like AoE cleanse or AoE block debuffs or even AoE big heal stuff. But there are some like smaller, like single target heals and single target, cleanse abilities, that kind of things, or duration reduction stuff. So there are some things that can make this a lot easier for you than not. So I would definitely be looking for, because of that fear on the A1, right? I would definitely be looking for things that can, remove debuffs, cleanse debuffs, reduce the duration of them, or block them, right? Now, I don't think there's any block debuff champions in this, like on this faction, but you do have champions like Sanguina that can reduce or that can cleanse. We have champions like Cardinal that can revive. We have champions like I think Anchorite does a duration reduction, right, or a cleanse himself. We also have what's her name, Carlina, who I'm going to use, who can reduce the duration of debuffs as well. There are a couple of options. We have a couple heal or shield champions, right? Like Hope places a really big shield. That's really good. Godseeker obviously heals. Cardinal obviously heals. Anchorite heals. Romero heals. So there are a few champions that can do that. I think even, Canoness, Adriel, they all and Sanguina, they all have some like pseudo healing abilities as well. So there are a couple options there for you, right? You have HP burn with Mordecai, HP burn with Carlina. You've got, the good thing about this faction is there's a wide range of skills available to you. Problem is they're not really on really good champions, right? That's big problem one. Problem two is that the rare champions suck. Like some of the worst rare champions in this game. Even though there are a plethora of them, they're just not that good. Now, there are a couple rares that I would look at using, right? If you're like really desperate. Draconis is a good one, right? He's got some healing. on his A1. He's got some healing. He has a big shield on this A2. He's got some healing and a single target cleanse on the A3. So he does have some stuff that you could use. I probably would have brought him in, but I don't actually have him on my account right now. Mother Superior is an interesting one. She's got some potential here, right? With some continuous heal and shields. She's got some healing here with shields, and a decreased attack on the A1. Not spectacular. Wouldn't build her for this, but you could, is kind of the point. Even Templar has some potential here with his AoE provoke. Again, it's not really something I would highly recommend, but it could come useful in a pinch. And then Aethel, of course, can do some damage for you, as the starter champions are always useful. There's so many epics. You're probably going to be able to build a team fully with epics, and that's probably what I would recommend. And that's actually what I did to break out of this. Now, champions, I would definitely highly recommend utilizing Cardinal, top of the list, Godseeker, top of the list, Deacon Armstrong, top of the list. And then probably I would actually, if you're looking for big damage dealers, if you can't just spread out your damage, get, average damage from everybody, Panax is a really good option here. Aethar is a really good option. I'm going to be using both of them, so you'll get a good view of how you would want to use that. I think Mordecai can be great. HP burns, always valuable. Sanguina, Frostbringer, those would be some of the ones I would be recommending. There is some potential with definitely many of the others. Romero's actually pretty good with his shield ability. Hope is really nice too. That's somebody I like a lot. Lodric, Anchorite, even Canoness would be somebody I'd be real tempted to try out and utilize a little bit, but it's not like it's a spectacular. It's not spectacular, unfortunately. You don't have a ton of options here. This is why Cardinal's really good for her revive, build her tanky, and almost regardless of who you bring in, they'll actually have some usage for you. That might be one of the recommendations I'd go with. Lightsworn's a really good option too. So anyway, that's kind of the champions here. You don't need to worry. Honestly, you don't have to worry too much about this. The waves aren't crazy. You've got the Broadma in wave 1, right? Along with, I think it's Broadma and a bunch of basically useless champions. It's not very difficult. And then in wave 2, you do have the combination of Maneater, Steel Skull, and Draco in there. That one can be definitely a little bit trickier to get through. But as long as you have enough healing and sustain, shouldn't be much of an issue. So for me, what I would recommend, I do like Phanax a lot. His AoE block buffs is really good. The decreased defense and speed is great for the boss, and his real powerful A1 is really, really good for the boss as well. So that is one damage champion I would recommend bringing in. So anyway, hopefully you guys found this helpful. I always like doing these faction war approaches, and Sacred Order is another one down. So that's all we got for today. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you are looking for the other factions too, I have done more than a few of them. I think maybe we get some thumbnails floating around my head here, passing on behind me. But if you want to see them, I do have a playlist called Faction Wars. You can check that out, and you'll be able to see all the different factions that I've gone through right there. So don't forget to check that out. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next we meet on the Deadwood Jedi.